Hey there, independent Scientologists. Discover a new perspective to your bridge by visiting ao-gp.org. Get in session with remote auditing using the Theta Meter. Are you curious about where you stand? Head on over to ao-gp.org now and take our free personality test. Join the growing group of independent Scientologists today.
Hi, and welcome to another AOGP Scientology Outside of the Church podcast brought to you by the Advanced Org of the Great Plains and the College of Independent Scientology.com. AO-GP.org is the other site. Today, we are going to talk about a very popular topic right now on TikTok and the internet and all that in regards to the James Webb Telescope. Are aliens real? An independent Scientology viewpoint. This will be interesting.
So pretty much the reason why I wanted to do this one is because we've been seeing a lot of TikTok videos saying that the James Webb Telescope has found an unidentified flying object, and this object is apparently unnatural, and it has even course corrected towards Earth. And it'll be here. What year did you say, Arthur?
I'm estimating around 2030, I think it was.
Yeah, the distance.
Or 2027.
The light distance, the speed that light travels. I looked it up. The distance that it is at is roughly the distance that Pluto is in our solar system. So in a big ball surrounding our sun, it isn't necessarily out by Pluto, but it's at that distance somewhere in a circular ball of about 5.5 light hours. That's the speed that light travels in 5.5 hours. So it's at the edge of our system as far as distance goes in some direction. Supposedly headed this way and has corrected its course, which is something comets don't do. Asteroids don't correct their course. So that's sort of the big, if this is true, it is something we have not seen before and are seeing now. I couldn't find anything on the speed that it was traveling at, but based off of what Arthur's found within the next 5 to 6 years.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Now, so I think it'd be interesting to know what Arthur pointed out to us about Google. What was it, Arthur? When you put in different years, you did it too.
Yeah. So if you just do, say, 2024 and then go, but then if you click on the images, so on the images tab where it'll bring up images, and then you'll sort of get like every year seems to have its own theme. So 2029 is, it's coming, asteroids, why should we worry? Like all the images is based on, some kind of comet or asteroid hitting the Earth. And then if we go 2028, we've got 28 Olympics, and that's just Olympics, nothing else. And then if we go 27, so a bit about AI and something with the calendars. There's a lot here about the calendars. And if you keep going all the way up, you go the other way, it just seems to get a bit glum.
Dark.
A bit gloomy and a bit doomy. Yeah. New world, aliens. So, 2030, we won't own anything by 2030. All sorts of crazy stuff, predicting that the Earth will be a lot darker in 2030, which isn't that far.
No.
It's very interesting. It's like
in 3 months.
Yeah, you've almost got to ask yourself, okay, so is this, because I don't know how Google ranks their stuff, right? But I imagine it's how most of these other platforms operate, which is via algorithm, user interaction kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, it's sort of the collective consciousness of what people are searching for and everything.
Right. So, I mean, I guess there's a lot of fear because almost none of them, except for that one year with the Olympics, is positive.
Right. It just blows me away.
Yeah.
How much the Olympics is on people's mind in 2028. And then there's, an asteroid, coming to Earth,
AI taking over.
Yeah, right.
Aliens.
Yeah. So
but how normal is it where we'll get like a window before something? Build up. Okay, give them a break. Back to it. So maybe
Yeah.
the 28 Olympics is our breathing time before everything changes. And while that's being the main focus on media,
Yeah.
what else is going on in the background?
I read somewhere that every 80, I think it was 80 years, every 80 years we have like some sort of event. Or I think, no, it was actually just war. We have like a world war or something like that. I'm not sure how true that is.
Around that, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Now, as an interesting comparison to something that's sort of rear view mirror type of thing, I remember in 98, 99, Y2K, the
Yeah,
Y2K bug. I bought books on it. I read on it. I notified the church about it, and the church was like, "What?" They didn't know a thing about it. I said, "You guys might want to prepare for this," and they took it seriously. Did anything happen?
No.
No,
Shit
no,
happened.
no.
yeah,
Our parents
yeah,
also sort of, doomsday prepped a
yeah,
little.
Yeah, because I mean, it seemed like
yeah,
a plausible thing that these chips weren't set up for the switch to the year 2000, and they might just conk out because they couldn't handle
yeah,
that switch, which but literally no obvious outward anomalies occurred at all,
Yeah.
and that
at
was
all.
and
Yeah,
yeah, at all. That's sort of an example of
yeah,
these types of things that are on the collective conscience of people, and then it sort of fizzles.
You almost got to ask yourself, was it designed that way? The whole problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah, it was a distraction, is that what it was? I mean, it had
Boost
my
the
attention.
economy because of all the people buying shit. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
same as COVID, I
Yeah,
mean,
so to bring it back to the
toilet paper running out. My God.
to
yeah, yeah,
the alien thing. I mean, you look at the drip feed of information that's been coming out the last couple of years from the so-called US government and what they've been running into.
Yeah, like I watched this thing a few years ago. This is my viewpoint, okay? Like I believe that there very possibly could be aliens. In fact, it's a probability at this point because I mean, if you look at the size that we are compared to, and I'm talking just Earth compared to like everything else out there. I mean, it's we're we're not even a pinprick, you know?
Mhm.
So for me, it's like very probable that there probably is something out there. However, a few years ago, I watched this little series. I think it was like Islamic, but they had it, I think they had subtitles. And they said that the US and more importantly, the Illuminati and the elite and, all of that stuff was creating a scenario. They're going to drip feed us and pose, that the whole alien thing is this way and that. And, sort of making it like, what do we flatten it pretty much, right?
Desensitized.
Yes, you're desensitizing the
yeah,
topic. Yeah,
That's what I meant by
it's
drip feed.
yeah, it's slowly basically been done that way. I mean, if you took prior to the whole Area 51 thing, right? And you just told people like the government came out and said, "Okay, listen, we have aliens
Mhm.
here." Right? People probably would have fucking lost their minds. Whereas, now I think there was some governor or something, or I don't know who he was, but he literally said, yeah, aliens are a thing. And people are like, okay, cool story, bro. Like it was just like nothing.
yeah, yeah,
So I think we're just that desensitized that we're just like, okay, if aliens come, and a lot of us make jokes and stuff and say, hey, like if they come, can we like stop paying rent or, do we still have to go to school and
Still go
work
to
and
work.
stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, so this arrivals thing, they've basically been saying that they're presenting it slowly. And I definitely wonder if that's the case. I wonder if that's the case.
Well, I think it's been over decades, and it has really ramped up. Now, this same week, last week, it was also announced, and we didn't mention this before the podcast to Arthur. Same week, it was mentioned that the James Webb Telescope, which is the most powerful telescope we have in orbit, and it's quite a ways out. It's not in low orbit. Spotted city lights on one of the planets orbiting Proxima Centauri, which is our closest neighbor. if you want to Google that one and see what you can find on that.
Mm.
So, course correcting object hurtling towards Earth at the distance of roughly Pluto, and Proxima Centauri, I think, is a couple of light years away, 2.5 light years, something like that, 2.1 away from Earth. And one of its planets has city lights that they've spotted because the James Webb Telescope
there it is.
can see these lights on the surface of this planet is what's being reported.
Yeah, like almost every day there's something new about it all of a sudden. You get those people, you get these CIA agents or whatever, or ex-CIA, and they come on the Joe Rogan show and they say, yeah, this is what they don't want you to know, kind of a thing, but it's actually real. And there's almost always something in recent years.
The Tic Tac UAP videos from the FLIR cameras on the fighter jets off the coast of San Diego, and these things are flying at velocity, if you want to call it flying. They're moving at velocities that and making turns that would turn a human body into jello. Because, but the thing is if they are actually being controlled by somebody in there, which is an assumption, and then defying the laws of physics as we know it. So, and then a lot of people in the quote unquote field say that those are our own craft.
I once experienced something. Now, I can't really confirm or deny the whole thing, but so I was at that point in time living with my mom, and I was in my 20s, I think, and I was standing by the window, and all of a sudden, I saw these three lights. They were no bigger or brighter than just regular stars, maybe planets that you can see with the naked eye, just like little star things, right? But they were perfectly in alignment, and they were moving. And I mean, this was pretty big, actually, in a triangle, which at that point in time, I didn't believe in this alien stuff or anything, but years later, I've obviously been, I watch news and TV sometimes and stuff like that, and I've seen a theme where these things are triangular. So it's kind of strange. But anyway, I definitely know it wasn't an airplane, because the lights flash and stuff like that. And not only that, but this thing was huge, like bigger than an airplane. You couldn't see it, but you could just see the lights. So if it was an airplane and it was that low, you'd be able to actually see the airplane outline in the sky. Anyway, so this was at nighttime. But right after I saw it, my mind would have just ordinarily been like, okay, cool, whatever. It was probably just my imagination or something. But it was so weird that right after I saw it, I picked up my phone and I wanted to take a picture of it or a video of it. And suddenly the lights went out, of the whole block. Now, I don't know why that happened, if it was a distraction or what, but it was really creepy. So there's that. There's my story.
Yeah, I've got a couple good ones myself, but I mean, these are things that I've seen with my own body, and gone, oh, okay, that's definitely something. Not, I mean, it was both situations that I saw with my own eyes were very real, palpable things that you could go, okay, this isn't just some far off distant light. It was obvious what it was, and it was completely unexpected. And both were because I drove a lot.
Yeah.
In my, when I was a kid and an early adult, and yep. And it wasn't that I didn't believe in them, but I mean, there was no other explanation for it other than what it was, type of a thing. One looked like something, in Close Encounters, not far away, less than half a mile away. right overhead, and the other one was a little bit over a distance in the Arizona desert as we were heading back to Kansas City from Los Angeles, and it looked like they were mining something on the surface, and it was a swarm of craft moving around that looked like bees.
Wow.
Almost at a distance, moving really quickly, shooting stuff at the surface, heading up into the upper atmosphere of space. It was very obvious. But Arizona and New Mexico are, the Four Corners area is full of that stuff. Always has been, as far as I know. But,
do you have any stories like that, Arthur?
I've had similar things where, you see stars moving and disappearing or what appear to be stars.
Yeah.
But there's a friend of mine, so where I live, about an hour away, is the original tracking station for Australia, and it's been demolished now. And a lot of that area in the bush is restricted, very restricted, like for defence and the army and that kind of thing. So there's some areas you just can't access. However, a mate of mine, he's a bit cheeky, and he'll spend nights out there with his camera, and the amount of images this kid has captured is just mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling photos he's taken from his phone, just by jumping a few fences and hiding out in this bushland. Yeah, it's really quite incredible. And but what about here on Earth? So what about things like crop circles?
Right.
Because they're like every year.
Yeah, this is crop
year.
circle season.
Yeah.
September and October, especially in the UK and Europe. And there's some of the crop circle designs and stuff that have happened in the past. There's the one with the sort of alien gray that has a disc on it that they deciphered what it says, and the alien gray has 3 ships over its shoulder. That's one of my favorites because it isn't just a mathematical design. It might as well be, a selfie in a cornfield with P.S. I love you letter or something like that. That's the best one I've ever seen. But I mean,
shoot to kill.
Yeah, every year they get better and better and better and better. And there is no way somebody could go out there with a tractor and make one of these things because they are so exact. I mean, it's just mind blowing.
But every year,
circles.
You can look up. It is.
Yeah.
By the year, every single year, there's quite a lot of them. It's not 1 or 2. It's 20, 30, 40.
All over the planet.
A lot.
Yeah.
Which is really quite incredible.
I was going to say that some of these, I could see how they would make them, like the round ones, like some of the more simple ones, because you just basically, it would work like sort of like a protractor. You just stick a pole in the center and then use your machine and just keep going round and round. That would create perfect circles. But then you get to some of these other ones, like I'm looking at one now that it sort of looks like a yin yang type of thing.
Yeah.
And that would take a really ridiculously long time. And also I wouldn't know how they would get, because they've got like these like the yin yang lines. Like I wouldn't know how they would create that so perfectly.
Well, there's some footage I've seen of they've caught this in action as it was being done, and it was sort of like well, for lack of a better expression, it looks like a ball or an orb of light that goes through, and it just flattens the corn, it bends it, and it does it in a matter of maybe a minute or two at the most, depending on what the complexity of the design is. In broad daylight, they've caught it before now, and now that we have drones and stuff like that, it makes it a lot easier, because a lot of times they don't know these things are there unless they fly over them with a plane or a drone to go out and see what it is, because I mean, these fields are vast, acres and acres and acres.
Even if hypothetically these were designed by humans, right? A lot of these designs have some sort of I want to say spiritual connotation or sacred geometry
Yeah.
rather.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you'd have to have several different people across several different places creating these very intricate symbolic signs, and it's very interesting, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Here's one on
But even the way the crops, even the way the crops are laid down, it's not just flat. You know, they're actually in some kind of pattern themselves as well. The way they get flattened, so it's not like just pushing something over it. So if there was a circle, the way the crop has landed, it's like it's spun flat as opposed to just pushed flat. Well, it's really quite
right.
interesting.
Right.
The close-ups.
I'm looking at 2024 crop circles. There's one on the BBC from the 23rd of July, 2024.
Okay, there's some cool ones.
Yeah, there's some really, really intricate designs. I can't even pronounce this. Etchelhampton Wilts, Stage 2, 29 August 2024. This was just the other day. 8th of August, Etchelhampton, Stoke Charity, 28th of July, Martin or Marlborough Wilts, 23rd July, Bradbury Rings, which is what I saw on BBC, July 2024, Normanton Down, which July, that's the least complex of any of those. Stonehenge, not far from Stonehenge, 30th of June, Wilton Windmill, 12th of June. And those are the most recent ones. And this website, temporarytemples.co.uk, has crop circles from 2024 all the way back to 1994, and they have podcasts on it as well. So, it wasn't a field mouse that did something like that. You look at these designs and they're absolutely massive, some of them. It's just incredible.
And so symmetrical as well.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
perfect.
Perfect. It's incredible. In the Wilton Windmill one, it's very similar to a lot of other ones that I've seen where it's these circles within circles and then extended circles of different diameters outside of it, with a diameter around a circle with 3 circles in that diameter, at the edge of that diameter. They don't know when these things show up, obviously, because it's not like they get an email. But the whole thing about aliens is like, well, we didn't do this, so who did do it? Is the question. And why did they do it? What are they trying to tell us? That sort of thing. Now, one of the things that I think is really interesting about the alien thing is if they are here, which I think they are, what do they need? What do they want? Are we a circus sideshow to them? That type of thing. And you look at the amount of alien footage just in South America that happens in Mexico practically on a daily basis now that everybody and their brother has a camera that can record video. It's constant. I mean, there's more of it happening than they can actually keep up with. Jaime Musan is one of the Mexican media guys who's a real straight shooter, and he tends to get some of the best footage. And we lost Arthur. And Arthur's coming back. You there? It's interesting that it dropped out.
Yeah, I think aliens are playing with my phone.
But Jaime's had some of the best videos I've ever seen. There's one where these kids are playing soccer outside at night under a mercury vapor light, you know, that yellowish copper color light. And they're playing soccer, and this kid has his phone out recording his friends kicking a soccer ball around, and this portal opens up against this hole, and I'm not kidding you, this alien reaches out and tries to abduct the kid through the portal, and his friends pull him out of the hands of the alien, and the kids are just beside themselves that they're seeing this and this happened. But he literally tried to pull the kid into this tear, if you will, of the physical universe and pull him back into it, whatever plane or whatever place it was. There was a very bright light behind the alien, and it was one of those gray type what supposedly aren't real bodies. They're like doll bodies that are sort of like an organic robot is what we've been told that they are. They're not alive, so to speak. The grays. Anyway,
that's all very interesting. For me, it's like I can understand, pop culture and, sensational. There must be some aliens, whatever. But this stuff goes back to like even probably prior to ancient Egypt. Where things, I mean, sightings, people say, I mean, even if you look at the Bible, right, things like angels coming down from the heavens and, chariots of fire. And, if you don't look at it in the literal sense that it's saying it in, you could interpret that to be beings of somewhere else.
Yep.
Well, I mentioned another podcast.
Well, even the angels falling to the earth as well, teaching humans, technology, warfare, jewelry, all these kinds of things.
Fallen angels.
Yeah, and the Nazca lines. You've got the Maya depictions of what looks like a guy sitting at a console in a ship. I mean, that's the interpretation of it. It sure looks like it.
Yeah.
And then the Gods of Eden book by William Bramley, where he researched why man warred with man so much and quit researching 7 times because he kept running into the fact that it was alien influenced every time.
So, even here in Australia, some of the cave paintings that the Aborigines did depict alien life forms. But what's interesting is they're not the popular ones that they promote, which I find really interesting.
Of course, they'd want to, suppress that until the right time.
Yeah.
Now, my dad always used to have this argument.
Them if you look for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, in every culture, there's something about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say my dad. He was always like, why is it that it's always the US that says, oh, they've got like it's sort of almost like propaganda where it's like the US and aliens and stuff like that. So I guess my question would be, why do you think that is? Why are the aliens specifically going and having talks or whatever the fuck they're doing in the US? Why are there so many sightings?
Arthur, you want to comment on that first?
I think it's more a bit of a ploy, kind of like the race to the moon, because the theory of the first country that lands on the moon has the potential to rule the world. And so that was like a really big threat. So of course, who lands on the moon first? The US. And I think it's a similar kind of thing where it's like, well, we're the ones dealing with the aliens, so watch out, world, because we've got a superpower behind us. And if you mess with us, we'll send our attack dogs in, in such a science fiction way, you have no hope. So do as we say, or else. That's my theory.
It is interesting to note that, I think it's obvious now more than ever that the general retail media is not something that can be trusted for information.
Yeah.
Regarding anything of any noteworthy mention because it's just put out there as propaganda to get people to think in a certain direction. And the only way that you get real news, well, and even then that's questionable, is you just because it's on TikTok or on the internet doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
No.
You look
Have
like
you guys oh sorry.
No, that's right. Go ahead.
Have you guys ever heard of the Nazi bell? It's a machine, the Die Glock, and the amount of UFO sightings that came out after its discovery, like after the war, and some of the stories of it where they weren't sure if it was a time machine or if it was a UFO, and it was like a complex machine that used magnetic pools, and so you've got your positive and your negative magnetic pool, but then there's talk that they found a third magnetic pool, and then once the three were in combination, it did something really incredible where they were able to build flying machines, because Hitler at the time wanted the fastest aircraft possible, and that's where the jet engine came in, because it would outdo propelled engines. So they came up with a jet engine, but while they're doing the jet engine, they were doing all these other weird experiments, and the Nazi bell was one of them. And if you haven't looked into it, it's kind of creepy. It's actually super creepy, this machine.
Well, I think
they did like a test run of it.
Yep. They were on they were on the verge of
it.
some big breakthroughs, and that's why I think that's why D-Day occurred, is they knew that they had a certain amount of time before they had enough technology that nobody else had that might turn the tide of history in favor of Germany. I mean, we got all of our the rocket scientists that Germany had at the end of the war, and brought them to the U.S. and they became part of JPL and NASA. So it's So as far as the alien thing goes, Hubbard mentions, talks about different invader forces and things like that exist, in our neck of the woods or nearby. And I mean, not every person that I've audited that's gone whole track, but most of them come up with something of their own. Now, whether that's true to the listeners or not, that's fine. But it's very real and very true to the people that are getting auditing, and there's a lot of fascinating information.
Do you think more people would turn to Scientology in the event of an alien? Because the biggest argument is that we're an alien cult. So do you think more people would be inclined to be like, hey, maybe this stuff has some bearing, kind of a thing?
I can't see how it wouldn't, because I mean, you look at the Catholic religion and how much that stuff is mentioned in there, which we've talked about in other podcasts. I mean, practically every religion in the world brings it up. Why is Scientology any different?
Right.
It blows my mind how people can be so biased on something. Oh, it's an alien cult.
I think it's different because it's a cult. Yeah, it's definitely different because Scientology is a cult. That's why it's different.
Yeah. And the whole cult and culture, and where the word cult comes from and everything like that. I just I think people are in a big non-confront on there being somebody else out there that might have something they don't. And I mean, that just goes right back to what you were saying earlier about fear.
Yeah.
And they're afraid of the unknown, and it just seems to me that the technologies that some of these societies have, I mean, they compared to ours, ours pale in comparison to the way they get around and everything like that, because they understand the universe far better than we do, or at least that we're letting on. I mean, you look at the Gary McKinnon thing. I
Mm.
don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but he was a hacker who hacked into the Pentagon because they didn't have very good password protection. And he's a bit of an autistic hacker. And he got into the Pentagon and was nosing around and found a manifest of our off-world interstellar navy and all of the crew and the names of the ships and how many people were on the ships and everything before he got caught.
Huh.
And they tried to extradite him for close to 20 years, and they didn't pull it off. He didn't get extradited from Britain, but he was banned from computers for the rest of his life in the UK because they caught him red-handed looking at these manifests. So Starfleet, to some degree, based off of his reports, exists, and that these ships were faster than light, and that the crews, similar to like what you saw in as an example in Men in Black, that they have to disavow their family. You have no family. You cannot communicate with your family. You're not married. Nothing. And that's the way that it has to be, because that's how they compartmentalize this whole interstellar navy. Which, you know, what was it? Trump started the, was it Space Force? I think it was called. You know, was a new branch of the American military, which was the Space Force. You haven't heard that much since Biden's been in office at all. I haven't heard it mentioned once.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
I heard he's an alien.
Well, he's well, and you know, you get into all of these technologies about cloning, and I mean, you know, this you can go as far as you want to go with this stuff, and things that have happened at Los Alamos and other underground bases. It goes on forever. So I don't know. It's not something that I disbelieve. I'm cautious about it, and I think that, I mean, you would be stupid to think that we were the only intelligent life in the universe. I mean, how ridiculous is that? When there's life everywhere at the bottom of the sea, they're seeing signs of life on Mars. I mean, what was it? Just a couple of years ago, they said, well, there's no water on Mars. But they were telling us.
Now they found vapor, I think.
Yeah, they found water vapor, and then they're saying, well, there's ice at the poles. Duh.
Yeah.
Ice what? Ice what? It's not methane. I mean, you know, I mean, you have to, anybody that knows anything about chemistry, and, you know, we mentioned before about the atmosphere on Mars, and how can you have a dust storm on Mars without an atmosphere? And then there was a guy, this was probably 10, 15 years ago, who used one of the earlier versions of Photoshop, and he took the American flag that was on the Viking lander, which was either one or two, took that American flag and used it as his color reference on Viking. And when he adjusted it for the same sticker that was on the, they had a working model of Viking at JPL. When he color corrected it, the sky went from red to blue. And the only reason you have a blue sky is because it's an oxygenated atmosphere. So he just color corrected the images based off of using a stable datum, the American flag on Viking, and then so they were putting a red filter on everything.
Huh.
So there you go. That's how you can have a dust storm on Mars.
Because you get a lot of amateur astronomers as well that don't mind spending a bit of money on some gear, and then what they show pictures of, even as simple as the actual color of the moon versus a colored color of the moon. You know, the images we see from NASA, as you say, or, you know, a home astronomer with a high-powered telescope, and some of the images they produce, it's completely different.
Completely different. We landed on the moon?
Do I?
Either of you?
I don't think so.
The longer I'm around, the more I doubt that it actually happened. which one? Which is the one astronaut who's still spry? I can't think of his name. Gosh, what's his name? And you see him all the time in the media.
Not Buzz, is it?
I was going to say Buzz. Yeah,
Buzz Aldrin.
Buzz Aldrin.
He's flat out said, "We didn't go."
Yeah.
I mean, just nonchalantly, we didn't go. And it makes sense that
what moon landing?
It makes sense at the time that was the propaganda that needed to be put out there in order to maintain some sort of status quo. And then the question I had, even as a little kid, was, Daddy, who's taking pictures of that astronaut if he's the first man on the moon?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't coming from
the
yeah. I mean, somebody was recording the guy bouncing around on the surface.
Yeah.
When
was the moon landing?
68.
Yeah, and so now we're in 2024, and since then, with all this technology we have, it hasn't happened again.
Right. It was
that is weird.
Over 50 years. And then there were the stories they got there. And when they landed there were aliens sitting on the edge of the crater that they landed in that were watching them. So, if that's the case and they said, don't come back, that would be something that I would believe. Do I think that we had the technology to land on the moon in the 60s? Yeah, probably. Manned? But maybe not.
Why wouldn't we have landed on the moon?
Well, I mean, when you figure from about 1961, 62 to 1968, 6 years, Elon Musk hasn't been able to get his rockets approved for launch or anything like that quick enough to do that now. I would you just look at it and you go, well, but it just seems to me that it might have been more of a propaganda thing than anything. I mean, for special effects, boy, I mean, they pulled it off if it wasn't real. There's a great movie about that came out in the late 70s with James Brolin and Telly Savalas. And believe it or not, O.J. Simpson is in it as well. And it is about that particular subject. And it is a great movie, and the cover-up of it, and that these astronauts break out off of the film stage where they're recording this whole thing and try to tell the world we're not and didn't go to the moon, and that they try and, well, I'm not going to ruin the story. Great story. And you don't see it anywhere anymore. It's sort of been squashed, but it was very popular on Cinemax back in the 80, 81. It came out, I think, in 79. So I don't know. Hubbard says, and I tend to agree with him based off of what I've seen auditing wise, that the moon is basically the watchtower over the planet for the prison. And you see this footage of amateur, like Arthur's saying, the amateur astronomers who film the moon, and they see ships come out of the surface, not off of, out of the surface of the moon.
Wow.
Frequently.
Yeah. And the sun as well.
And the sun. Yeah.
People filming things coming in and out of the sun.
Yeah. I've seen that. There was this one video that we saw, I think it was a year or two ago, of this thing, this ship, and it seemed to be I guess harnessing, I don't know, from the sun. Like it looked like it was taking energy from the sun. It's weird.
Yeah. So,
and people using light field cameras, and they're just pointing them to the sky, and the activity is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. It's like looking into a pond with lots of insects.
That's what it reminds you of. Yeah.
It's honestly unfortunate that that we have reactive minds, because things like for example, the solar eclipse. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was just like there's so many conspiracies around that,
Yeah.
and people rode on that fear for like a long time. So it becomes difficult with reactive minds to discern what's real and what's not, because you have, I mean, if it was just up to a single reactive mind, okay, fine, but when you have several, and you get that group bank thing happening, like it's difficult. It's really difficult to know what's real, what's wrong, what's not.
Well, the thing you see the most of is people will sell their souls, give false information in order to make a buck on TikTok.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like we've gone back in time to where there was an eclipse and everybody thought it was the end of the world type of a thing.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Are we here again?
Yeah.
Are you shitting me? They act like they've never seen an eclipse before. How many? I mean, we've all seen eclipses before. Full eclipses are kind of rare because it's a sweet spot kind of a thing, but eclipses happen all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal.
Right. Yeah. You know what we should do a podcast on?
Hmm.
Conspiracy theories. Like just one, like addressing like all of them and our thoughts.
Sure. That would be a long one.
Yeah.
There's
so many.
There's so many. And to give credit where credit is due, Rogan has done a really good job on having a ton of guests. He's up in the 2000s of guests that he's had and everything like that. He's had Bob Lazar on several times, who worked at S4 and basically was part of the team reverse engineering the sport model of one of the ships that they had uncovered from an archaeological dig. And they're trying to reverse engineer these things to use them in the black programs and stuff like that at the time. And they had a book explaining religion on the planet that he got his hands on, where it said that, and this coincides, and it totally obliquely with Scientology, but it says the same thing that Hubbard said. It's that bodies are a soul cage. They're a vessel to keep us occupied with.
Oh, I think so too.
So, who started that operation and how long has it been going? And it coincides with things Hubbard said. And Lazar came out after Hubbard died. So there are lots of disparate sources all over the planet that talk about these sorts of influences from one angle or another, whether they're Nazis, the Catholic Church, or over in India, Chinese have their things, the dragons in the sky and all that. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
How can it not be the case?
Yeah.
And it's funny because it is.
Go ahead, Arthur.
Because it's not a new idea, and it's like you say, it's there are ideas that have been around for such a long time. But then the question is like why A, do we question it? B, why isn't it an open discussion? C, like why is all this stuff so hush hush?
I think it's because people don't want to know. They don't want to confront it. Yeah. In a lot of cases, and those who do know don't want us to know as well.
Well, man fears anything he doesn't understand.
Yeah, but why?
And aliens, right, are things we don't understand. There's so much uncertainty around it, That's one of the reasons why I think we wouldn't necessarily be able to confront that. It's strange. It's, I mean, just the whole concept of the unknown it creates fear in people. And then the second part with, why is it so hush hush? I think it's because, well, I think leaders know that, but not just that. I think that if aliens were here, right, you've got to ask yourself, why are they here? And, if they're dealing with governments and stuff, we all know that governments are generally corrupt. So there would be a negative reason for their presence. So, overt, withhold.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the positive things that you've heard about from aliens come from individuals that they've approached who don't have anything to do, don't have any government contacts or anything like that, but then you deal with the viewpoint of, oh, and I'm just using this as an analog. Oh, you talked to Jesus, Jesus came to you. It's sort of like that. No, why would Jesus come and talk to you?
In another sense, also, though, if they've had a positive experience with them. Now, I'm not saying that all aliens are hostile, but I am saying that it could be the same for, there's, I can't remember what the name is called, but there's these beings, these things you see in your dreams, right? These beings, and they're like, they have this like energy that just makes you want to be near them, but it's actually a trap. So I wish I knew what it was called, but you have them across, different beliefs and religions and places, So
yeah, there's a lot of commonality.
I mean,
globally.
Slender Man is kind of like that with children.
Yeah, the hatted man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. Whatever direction you lean in, there are so many accounts of different things, both alien and otherwise, that we've barely scratched the surface of all the different types of phenomena. But I think one of the takeaways from it is across all boards in this area is that there is more than one dimension. There are different planes of existence. There are ways to get from point A to point B that are far faster than speed of light.
Oh, I so badly want to start talking about conspiracy theories now, because I was just about to mention when you said the whole dimensions thing, I was like, yeah, like deja vu. What the hell is that? That kind of thing.
I mean, you just look at it and you go, okay, how long does it take to get from point A to point B in the physical universe from here to Sirius A?
Right.
I mean, you're still looking at years to get there. As
fast as a thought.
And when it really comes down to it, like Arthur just said, as fast as a thought.
Yeah.
If you don't use the physical universe and you've got a shortcut, wormhole, whatever you want to call it, it might be instant, it might be a few minutes at most. And these guys they've figured it out. And maybe one day a sock dropped off the bed and disappeared. It wasn't under the bed or on the floor, and some guy said, huh. That's interesting. And then that civilization used that to research and then found out that at a proper speed and at a proper distance in a proper place. And this is to Arthur. Have you heard of Pine Gap in Australia? The Pine Gap military installation?
Yeah.
Supposedly, along this line, Pine Gap is an installation that surrounds a gravitic anomaly on Earth where they can send things into space, and it's sort of like, if you will, a trampoline where they can put stuff in there and it shoots it up into the atmosphere into orbit. There's
videos of people that will drive their cars towards it, and then they'll put it in neutral, and then the car will just start, because of the magnetic force, it'll just start pulling the car uphill. It's pretty interesting, and it's actually not that far from me. It's only a couple of hours away. I should go for a drive out there.
Oh, Arthur, come back.
So the whole gravity thing is where this ends and begins, and that one of the guys that had met with one of these civilizations that came and visited him, he came back and said, what's faster than light? Gravity. And if you can focus on that gravity, sort of like having some oil on a fishing line, and you aim it down, where does the oil go? It goes in the direction of gravity. But supposedly they told him, and I can't remember the guy's name, but they told him that, and of course this is on the internet, don't take my word for it, Google it or whatever, that gravity is caused by the light of a star somehow. This is what they said. And so they use these stars as their focal points, and then so they just amplify that wave, so to speak, And that's how they get from at least at one civilization, how they get from point A to point B. So there, it's sort of like, where do you want to go? Okay, there. Well, it's nearby there. Okay, we'll use that star. We'll focus on that gravity wave, and because gravity is faster than light. Sounds good. I could believe that. But you see these other videos of these things where there's a square that breaks down into 16 squares on the inside, and it opens up like a door. The ship goes, and then the door closes again, and the ship's gone. And it's so, as many different civilizations that are out there that are traveling in the physical universe throughout the galaxy or galaxies. I'm sure galaxies. These guys over time have figured out just totally different ways to get around from point A to point B faster than light. Now, again, to your question, why do they want to come here? What's the big deal here? Why would you want to come to a place with a bunch of cavemen who can't get along with each other and blow each other up all the time? Why is this such an interesting place? I mean, the supposedly the United States,
we're more advanced. Maybe it's the complete opposite. Like, we're stuck with our own personal perceptions of pain and misery and all that kind of thing. Yeah. And maybe we just have an ignorant hope that there's a better something out there than us, more advanced.
Right. Grass is always greener.
More loving, more blah, blah, blah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. That very well may be.
Civilization.
Or they advanced and they are here to basically monitor the situation and observe that we don't, become the next whatever they experienced kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
that's another theory. Yeah. This theory is the fun theories.
Yeah.
But I really do think that the technology that we have in independent Scientology is something that other civilizations, not all, probably most, don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, based off of what I know as an OT and what I've seen with other people, shit ain't that great out there.
Yeah.
Whether you can travel faster than light doesn't mean, I mean, you look at all of the stuff that happens here on this planet, and nobody's intervening.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying, stop. And, maybe that's part of sort of like Starfleet in Star Trek, is you can't you're not allowed to interfere, or you shouldn't interfere. You have to let them figure it out, let them work it out for themselves.
Right.
Type of a thing. And that's free will, and that's self-determinism and pan-determinism, which I get, but why are there so many diverse races when the American government is saying there's 58 different classified, as of about 20 years ago, races that have come fairly often to Earth in different modes of transportation, or if you even want to look at it as transportation, it's just a shift in time. Because if it's a shift in time, it's not a matter of point A to point B. It's more a matter of time, because where the Earth is now isn't where it was 2 seconds ago at the rate of speed that the planet is moving on. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's more of time than it is place.
And even just while we're discussing, I just had an image of like some black and white old films and old footage where, if we're talking about people capturing these phenomena on film, even in the black and white days, where things were being debunked, with paper plates on a piece of string or something like that. Mm-hmm. Even way, way, way back then, there was actual footage, propaganda footage, made up footage, doctored photographs of all these anomalies. So what if it is just merely propaganda? And it's just the technology for doing footage these days is so much more advanced. It looks so much realer. What if it's been doctored the whole time? Yeah.
Could be.
There's so many approaches to this. It's incredible.
That would go back to the series that I watched, The Arrivals, on how they're trying to introduce the concept of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like going into the Amazon and introducing, to one of these civilizations that's never seen technology before, type of a thing. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just we're not used to the idea that there are different universes and you can go in and out of one to the other and skip distance and time and all that stuff. We've had visitors that have time travel, and they've taken people into the future and showed them what San Francisco will look like in 1,000 years, and it was rubble.
Huh.
Yeah.
And just to demonstrate to them that they could do this stuff, and they wouldn't let them stay when they wanted to stay with them, and they didn't want to go back to our time. It's look, I want to stay with you guys, and they're like, no, we can't do that. We're just here to let you know that this is real. I mean, I can either confirm or deny that, but I do know that based off of my own experience, a lot of us haven't been here that long. We come from other places in the universe, and it's been this show here has been going on for a long time,
right?
And we are
even in the dictionary sense, what is an alien? An alien is somebody not of your country, right?
Yeah. Right.
And then we have, because in a higher sense, we like to call ourselves a human race. Black, white, brown, doesn't matter, right? We're all humans. But then the fact that we have this word race as well, race of humans, human races, all these things. And if you look at the different cultures and all their histories, they are so vastly different. So what if we're a collection of aliens in similar form, 5 fingers, 10 fingers, 10 toes, 2 eyes, kind of like dogs. There's different races of dogs and different races of cats, and they can interbreed. What if we're a collection of other planets that all landed here at separate times or in a moment of desperation? And so even us as humans, we're actually not the same. Doesn't mean we can't interbreed, and it doesn't mean we're not similar. But I just find it interesting that we have these words, race, alien in its original meaning, which was pretty much just an immigrant, not off your country. If I came to the US, I'd be alien because I'm from Australia. Just that kind of thing. And even just those words.
Yeah.
I wouldn't disagree.
No, absolutely. I mean,
because the physical appearances are very strikingly different.
Yeah. Maybe you could explain it away by, evolution and that sort of thing, but like, for example, I can see that being, the case with Africa, the sun and, all of that and stuff like that. But then, like Asian people, like Chinese and stuff, like if you look at India versus China, and they're not that far apart, they're completely different people. The one's dark and they have, they don't have any sort of like eyelid, like how the Chinese and that sort of thing, like they don't have eyelid. Well, they do, but it's small or something, so it's really strange.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And we're kind of watching evolution take place because we're watching races intermix. So we're actually making hybrid humans, so to speak. An Asian and an American, for example, like if a traditional white American, coming together, what are they going to make? They're going to make a hybrid human, aren't they? Because they're not of the same race.
Right.
And we're kind of watching evolution take shape as we speak. And I think eventually we'll all intermix at such a degree, it probably will end up just being one human by the end.
Right.
Because by the time all the races have mixed their genes together, who knows what we'll look like in the end.
Yeah, apparently, eventually, we're basically all going to be mixed race people.
Yeah, supposedly within the next 150 years, the quote unquote Caucasian race will be enveloped in other races, and it was just sort of a fad,
Right.
you know, and that's because the other races, you know, they're now we have airplanes and stuff like that. The mixing is happening way faster than it did where they were stuck on a continent.
Yeah.
And couldn't leave because of the water. I mean,
well, also because the prejudices are way lower now.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
That too.
Yeah.
So, you know, how would it be?
Well, is
how
it
would it be any different?
What if it's the opposite? Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. There's so many angles you can take on this. Well, is it a good thing that we're all mixing the way we are? You know what I mean? Like, is it a good? And I'm just, you know, being devil's advocate. You know, is it a good thing?
Yeah. Well, look what genetics gets you when you pure breed a dog or a cat. They come down with all kinds of body problems.
Right, but that's when you go close together.
Well,
I have seen
exactly.
I think it's a good thing, not only because, you know, the racism won't be a thing, but also because I know that if you take two people from two different races and you know they have a kid, do you know how beautiful those fucking babies are?
Yeah,
that's because the gene pool is so far apart.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. You mixed race. You're just like, good God, look at that.
Yeah.
And you know, it's stunning.
Yeah.
When
it's an alien.
It's an alien. You get this diversity that you didn't have before, and you know the smartest and the healthiest dogs and cats are when you do labradoodles. You know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, from a galactic standpoint.
Although, I will say some of those instances, like when you try to breed a specific dog, it can actually end up with a lot of problems, back problems, breathing problems, heart problems, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's similar in the human race.
Yeah. Well, I think it's genetically, it's a bit of a luck of the draw. That's sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But you look at the different races that they've seen come here from other civilizations. You got the Pleiadians, who are Nordic looking, blonde hair, blue eyes, type of a thing. I haven't heard of any blacks coming from other civilizations. Maybe they have. It would surprise me, or Orientals or anything like that. But that's just an example that if that can happen, any of the others could be a reason why we have these different races on this planet as well. But I mean, you know, you also have to open your viewpoint to the fact that you don't necessarily have to have a body to travel the stars. And its space is a very dangerous place. That's why these alien grays are around. They're sort of automatons, doll bodies, if you will, where you can send something, well, like Elon Musk wants to do with the Tesla bots. Instead of risking somebody's life, send up some robots.
Right.
You know, and if things go wrong, well, you're just out a spaceship and some robots. Nobody died. I mean, why wouldn't you? It makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Radiation's not going to affect it. You know, if a micrometeorite pokes a hole through the spaceship and hits the propellant or something like that. And then I just gotta say this. I think it is so silly from a galactic viewpoint. If somebody saw our science fiction, how everything had to have flames shooting out of the back of it in order to get around, they must think that is the silliest thing they've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's a combustion engine that these guys use to get into space, and they're just laughing their asses off while they listen to Beatles' Abbey Road and go, "This is the good shit."
Yeah, because going back to what you were saying, you were mentioning some things earlier on about like the gravity and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, like right now we haven't been able to do much on the unified field theory, Einstein's theory of relativity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the closest we've gone, I think, has been E equals mc squared. Now imagine if you actually have to unify all of those forces, how I think you could technically travel without using the means that we do right now.
Well, just 2 years ago, NASA mentioned that they think they've figured out speed of light travel. They think they have it figured out. You can Google that. That they've got it figured out, and then you haven't heard anything else about it since then. And then they've got ion drives. They're literally using ion drives on some of these quote unquote they call them, they're not interstellar ships, but these robots that they're sending out there, they're using ion drives, which are pretty fucking fast.
Yeah.
But they're not speed of light fast.
I think they also said that they were able to, I think CERN was able to have a particle go from present time to past time.
Yeah.
But they can't mimic that in full scale.
Yeah. There's a lot going, like I said earlier, there's a lot going on. And with AI, where we're at right now with AI, and when you can put an agent or agents on something and you say, here's all the information, figure it out. And all you need is the compute power to do this. That's when we go straight up and vertical. That's when things really get interesting, and they're very interesting right now.
Really incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Really. And I think, man,
we could have speed of light travel by 2030. If I think we already do, and why would they tell us?
Yeah.
I don't think that they would tell us.
Yeah.
It's better to keep us in the dark.
Of course. But the sad thing about the whole AI thing is that it is so it's biased right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I put in some things about without being anti-Semitic at all. Is that right? Semitic, yeah. Mm-hmm. I put in some things in ChatGPT the other day, and just for research purposes about the banking, and if the Jews controlled the banks and stuff like that. And now it would be one thing for it to tell me that it was like that's just part of propaganda and anti-Semitism and stuff like that. But this was it was almost a little reactive from a bot saying, this is I can't remember the exact words it used, but it was just very strongly saying this is bullshit, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to have an objective viewpoint, that's kind of difficult to do with AI because it's programmed, and it's programmed by people, and all people have a reactive mind.
Yep. We did a podcast on that, like Hubbard says, the data
is only as good as you. Yeah.
Computer's only as good as the data that you put in it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is it's a great tool for propaganda if you want it to be.
Right. No, absolutely. Welcome back, Arthur. We were just talking about AI and how it is very much, well, there's a subjective reality to it, unfortunately, because even though it, quote unquote, isn't opinionated, it is opinionated in the sense that it is programmed to give you certain answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't look here. There's no information here.
Yeah.
And that's where it ends. I mean, that's no different than what Google has been for 20 years.
Yeah, and the reason why I mention it is
Yeah.
because, okay, sure, like we want to build things and stuff like that, but it is not going to always give us the data in order to do that. Because I think, I mean, Microsoft is smart. They know. I think Microsoft still owns ChatGPT, right? Or
Well,
no, they have a version
they own a big stake in
or something.
Open AI. They've given them billions of dollars, and yeah, I mean, things are changing. I don't think Open AI is going to be well, they call it a pioneer for much longer.
Yeah.
Just for the fact that there are so many other entities that are, I mean, this area is a magnet for hundreds of billions of dollars. And then it gets to a point to where you've got to have the energy to run these computers, and we don't have enough energy. That's the stopping point right now, is there's not enough electricity to give these computers to do the work that they need to do to have the AI that we can have. If we had the electricity,
well, that's
the issue.
Let's actually reframe that. So we technically we do have the power. The only problem is that we don't have the facilities to get that power. So what I mean is,
the capability is there.
Sun,
we just don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Elon, again, to refer back to Elon Musk, he said, look, if we just took a small corner of Nevada and put it, I think it was a mile square solar power facility there, you could power the entire United States with it.
Yeah. And they won't do that.
Yeah.
They won't do that because the game is rigged.
I'm pretty sure somebody had an idea before that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not the first
like
to mention
the Wardenclyffe Tower, which could do the world.
Yeah, right. I mean, the solar power is dumbed down compared to what Tesla had by a long shot.
Yeah.
I mean, solar power is really slow to generate power, even by today's standards. It's better than it used to be in the 20, 30 years ago, but it's not great.
Yeah.
And I mean,
you have an entire ocean even, I don't know the science. I'm not that smart with this stuff, but anything that creates motion can generate some form of electricity.
Yeah. They have hydro generators in the ocean that are just based off of tidal energy.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, it's silly. Even LRH mentioned, he said, when you live on a planet that uses nuclear energy to make steam to run generators, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. You can.
Yeah, we're doing it backwards, but I think these barriers are put in place because of power.
Yeah, the control that way they keep controlling.
It's ironic.
Money, back to business.
Yeah. That's
power gives power.
That's right. These guys, person after person after person that comes up with a water-based engine or comes up with a free energy device always end up dead.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't believe. Look, I've tried to look at things and look, I'm no scientist, but I just don't see a way that perpetual motion machines can be real, especially considering you have the thing that LRH says, there are no absolutes, which is kind of a paradox because no absolutes. But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I was 5, I asked my dad, I said, why don't we use magnets to go to the stars?
Right.
And he said, that's a great question, John. I mean, just because you see how magnets repel each other.
Yeah.
Well, okay, use an electromagnet and shoot that shit in the atmosphere. I mean, that's pretty much what you're dealing with gravity as well, is if you reverse the gravity, off you go. It's a form of magnetism.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
But they don't want you to know that and be Marty McFly and have a hoverboard.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Well, any other things you guys want to cover? We're getting close to an hour and a half here.
Not anything much from my side, just that this podcast took a whole life of its own.
Yeah. So are we all in agreement that that we all feel that we are not alone?
I don't know if I believe that yes, we aren't alone, but I don't know if they have officially come to Earth and been like, hey, here we are.
Hey,
Somebody.
I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not. I just.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
the case. Who with what?
Yeah, I think they've been here for a lot longer than
Yeah.
we know. Yeah.
Or we are, and we're just
I
not
actually
going
still
to
think
admit it.
we're the aliens.
Yeah. I don't think there's any difference, to be
Yeah.
perfectly honest, based off of all of the auditing and stuff I've done with myself and other
Yeah.
people. There's no such thing as an alien.
Yeah.
It's just a universal stomping ground, and
It's kind of like this whole thing with South Africa, right? So like I'm not going to mention any specifics, but there are some tribes that feel that they belong here and they want to kick others out. And yet, and they call themselves native, except they already kicked somebody else out before. So there was somebody here, then they were here, now we are here. So, I mean,
I mean that seems to
what
be
is alien?
right.
What is native?
You always want something else that you don't have, or it has the resources or whatever, and that's the game of the physical universe. Is you've got what I want, or that looks better than what I've got, and it just, this is the game that's been played in the physical universe from practically as soon as there were other places to go. The grass was always greener.
Yeah.
In some form. I
Yeah.
think that's really what it's been.
Yeah.
So, well, for Scientology Girl and Arthur Mudakis, we hope you guys have enjoyed this and some food for thought. If you want to find out if aliens are real or if you had anything to do with it on your time track, get in session with AOGP, do a course, listen to what L. Ron Hubbard had to say about it from an independent Scientology standpoint. The Church Scientology has edited out a lot of the alien stuff out of the materials to be PC and keep their copyrights. So you won't find a lot of it there anymore, but you will in the independent field with us. So thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you in the next podcast later this week.
Bye.
Namaste, and we love you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.